11:47 a.m. Misawa Air Base, Aomori Prefecture, northern Japan. The sky above the Tohoku Plain is clear and hard blue, temperature 41 degrees Fahrenheit, a sharp wind cutting down from the Hakoda Mountains to the west. On the flight line, two F-35A Lightning IIs sit in their hardened aircraft shelters, engines cold, weapons bays loaded. Ground crews move between the shelters in insulated jackets, performing scheduled maintenance with the unhurried efficiency of professionals who have been doing this work in this place, at this pace, for years. Inside the Base Operations Center, the morning briefing has just concluded. The watch officer checks the clock. 11:47 a.m. Misawa Air Base is not just a flight line and a cluster of hardened shelters. It is one of the most strategically critical pieces of real estate in the Pacific Theater. Home to the 35th Fighter Wing, the base hosts F-35A squadrons, a Patriot missile defense battery, an NSA signals intelligence collection facility, and the U.S. Navy's Fleet Air Reconnaissance Squadron 3, the organization responsible for signals intelligence collection operations across the entire Northwest Pacific. It sits 360 miles north of Tokyo, 390 miles from the Korean Peninsula. In any scenario involving North Korea and Japan, Misawa is a primary target. Every serious war planner in Pyongyang knows it. Every serious war planner in Washington knows they know it. For that reason, the defensive architecture around Misawa is not a single Patriot battery. It is a layered system of extraordinary depth. PAC-3 MSE batteries at the base itself. The AD, Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, positioned at Aomori Prefecture, covering the approach corridors from the Korean Peninsula. A N/T PY-2X band tracking radars feeding data via the Joint Tactical Ground Station network to Aegis destroyers in the Sea of Japan. The USS John Finn and USS Curtis Wilbur, both Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers equipped with the Aegis B MD 5.1 software baseline, holding positions 180 nautical miles to the west. VLS cells loaded with SM-3 Block IB interceptors, radars, and continuous active search. And behind all of it, the command and control, battle management, and communications C2 BMC network that stitches every sensor and every shooter into a single integrated picture, managed in real time from Schriever Space Force Base in Colorado and the Ballistic Missile Defense System Operations Center at Fort Gregg Adams. This is not a passive defense. It is a living, networked, constantly learning system that has been refining its picture of North Korean ballistic missile capabilities for 23 years. Kim Jong-un had been watching too. In the 12 months preceding this morning, the Korean People's Army Strategic Rocket Forces had conducted 19 ballistic missile tests, a pace of development and operational validation that had no precedent in North Korean history. The KN-25 Multiple Rocket Launcher System, the Hwasong-15 Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, the Hwasong-18 Solid Fuel ICBM, and most relevant to this moment, the KN-23, a short-range ballistic missile whose flight profile mimics the Russian Iskander-M, flying a quasi-ballistic depressed trajectory at extremely low altitude to defeat standard area missile defense systems, and pulling aggressive terminal maneuvers that make endo-atmospheric intercept geometrically challenging. The KN-23 had been declared operational. Batteries of them had been positioned along the western coast of North Korea, within range of Japan. The warhead, assessed at conventional high explosive with a 500-kilogram payload, though intelligence analysis consistently flagged the possibility of chemical or radiological fill in a high-stakes escalation scenario. At 11:47 a.m. and 38 seconds, every sensor in the Integrated Missile Defense Network registers the launch simultaneously. Not one missile. Not a pair. 12 KN-23 ballistic missiles launching from 3 separate batteries along North Korea's western coast in a coordinated volley that spans 40 seconds from first to last ignition. Their exhaust plumes are visible to the SBIRS missile warning satellites in geostationary orbit within 3 seconds of launch, classified and processed by the ground station algorithms in the following 6, and transmitted to every node in the BMD network: the destroyers in the Sea of Japan, the THAAD battery at Aomori, the Patriot batteries at Misawa, the Aegis Ashore site at Kyogamasaki on the west coast of Honshu. In the 4 seconds after that, 13 seconds from launch to full network awareness. The missiles are still in their boost phase. They have not yet cleared Korean airspace. In the Misawa Base Defense Operations Center, the watch officer receives the missile warning alert on his display. At the same moment, the base-wide alarm sounds across the installation. The Patriot Battery Alpha Fire Control Officer, seated at her AN/M PQ-65 engagement radar console, has already transitioned to full combat mode before the alarm finishes its first cycle. Her voice is measured, controlled. The voice of a person who has trained for this specific scenario 412 times in the last 3 years, and who knows, with the certainty of rehearsed muscle memory, exactly what the next 6 minutes require of her. Flash, flash, flash. Missile warning. 12 inbound tracks bearing 275 through 310, range 300 plus kilometers. Classified ballistic, probable KN-23. Engaging on timeline. THAAD and Aegis are in the net. Request weapons free. The Patriot Systems, PAC-3 MSE, the latest configuration, armed with the Missile Segment Enhancement Interceptor that carries a hit-to-kill kinetic warhead rather than blast fragmentation, are already computing engagement solutions. The PAC-3 MSE is not the Patriot of the Gulf War. It is a fundamentally different weapon, faster, more maneuverable, with twice the range and altitude coverage of the original PAC-3, and a kinetic kill vehicle that destroys ballistic missiles by direct body-to-body impact rather than proximity detonation. Its CEP against a ballistic target is measured in centimeters. The missile does not pass near the target. It strikes the target. But the PAC-3 MSE is the last line of defense for Misawa. Before the KN-23s reach terminal phase, 2 other systems will have had their opportunity. The USS John Finn, 180 nautical miles west of the Japanese coast, receives the launch notification and the track file from the C2 BMC network at the same moment as every other node. The John Finn's Aegis BMD system immediately classifies the 12 inbound tracks, computes intercept solutions for the trajectories that fall within her EDM 3-block IB engagement envelope, and presents the TAO with a prioritized engagement queue. The SM 3-block IB is a mid-course interceptor. It works best against missiles still in the exoatmospheric portion of their trajectory, above the atmosphere where the physics of intercept are clean and predictable. The KN-23, with its depressed trajectory, spends less time in exoatmospheric flight than a standard ballistic missile. The engagement window for the SM-3 is compressed. It is not eliminated. Weapons free. Engage. All units execute on timeline. The John Finn fires first. 6 SM-3 Block IB missiles launched from her forward VLS cells in an 8-second ripple at 11:48 a.m. and 12 seconds, 54 seconds after the first KN-23 left its launcher in North Korea. The SM-3 Block IB accelerates to Mach 10 on 3-stage solid fuel propulsion, deploying its lightweight exo-atmospheric projectile, the LEAP kinetic kill vehicle, at altitude. The LEAP maneuvers on cold gas thrusters, refining its intercept geometry in the final seconds before impact. The USS Curtis Wilbur, 22 nautical miles south of the John Finn, fires 4 SM-3 Block YBs 14 seconds later. 10 SM-3 interceptors total, assigned to the 6 KN-23 trajectories that offer the best exo-atmospheric intercept geometry. 2 interceptors per track to ensure probability of kill above 95% for each assigned threat. At 11:49 a.m. and 41 seconds, the first SM-3 intercept occurs 160 kilometers above the Sea of Japan. The KN-23 re-entry vehicle, moving at Mach 7 at this point in its descent, takes the LEAP kinetic kill vehicle at a combined closing velocity that produces a detonation equivalence of approximately 2 tons of high explosive through kinetic energy alone. The re-entry vehicle disintegrates. Its fragments follow ballistic paths into the Sea of Japan, dispersing harmlessly over a 100-mile footprint of open water. 9 seconds later, second intercept. 14 seconds, third. The engagements continue at intervals determined by the sequential geometry of each trajectory. 5 of the 6 targeted KN-23s are killed in the exo-atmospheric phase. The 6th targeted missile has maneuvered. The KN-23's terminal guidance system has executed a programmed lateral evasion pull at the moment of atmospheric re-entry, a 6G lateral maneuver that shifts its ground track by 11 kilometers and places it outside the kill zone of the assigned SM-3. The Aegis system on the John Finn flags the miss in real time and immediately transmits the updated trajectory to the THAAD battery at Aomori. THAAD, Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, is the bridge between the exo-atmospheric SM-3 layer and the endo-atmospheric PAC-3 layer. It engages ballistic missiles during their terminal descent phase at altitudes between 40 and 150 kilometers, using its own hit-to-kill interceptor carried to altitude on a 2-stage booster. The THAAD interceptor's seeker acquires its target via infrared homing in the terminal phase, a passive sensor that cannot be jammed by electronic countermeasures, that sees the thermal signature of the re-entry vehicle against the cold background of space, and that guides to direct impact with geometric precision. At 11:50 a.m. and 7 seconds, the THAAD battery at Aomori fires 2 interceptors at the evading KN-23. The first misses. The target's terminal maneuver shifts its trajectory beyond the first interceptor's divert capability in the final 4 seconds of the engagement. The second interceptor, launched 6 seconds after the first to provide angular separation, achieves intercept at 62 kilometers altitude. Direct hit. The KN-23 warhead section, still intact after the intercept in most debris scenarios, tumbles into a steep descent and impacts the Sea of Japan 46 miles northwest of the Japanese coast. No warhead detonation, no casualties. 6 missiles targeted in the exo-atmospheric layer. 6 killed, 5 by SM-3, 1 by THAAD. 6 KN-23s remain. These are the missiles that were never assigned to the SM-3 engagement queue, either because their trajectories offered no viable exo-atmospheric intercept geometry, or because they were the reserve elements of the North Korean salvo, launched on delayed timelines to arrive during the reload window of the SM-3 batteries. The THAAD battery engages 3 of them. 3 THAAD intercepts in 94 seconds, each one a direct kinetic hit at altitudes between 55 and 80 kilometers. Each re-entry vehicle destroyed before it enters the atmosphere dense enough to produce aerodynamic heating. The fragments fall cold into the sea. 3 KN-23s remain. Inside the atmosphere now, flying their depressed terminal trajectories at altitudes between 10 and 20 kilometers, pulling their programmed maneuvers, radar altimeter active, terminal guidance locked onto the GPS coordinates of Misawa Air Base. They are 120 seconds from impact. Battery alpha fires. The PAC-3 MSE launchers at Misawa, 4 launchers, 16 interceptors per launcher, 64 missiles in the battery, have been tracking the inbound tracks since the first THAAD engagement. The engagement radar has continuous track on all 3 targets. The fire control solution is updated 60 times per second. The computer assigns 2 PAC-3 MSE interceptors to each of the 3 inbound tracks, a deliberate overassignment to compensate for the terminal maneuver difficulty of the KN-23's Iskander-derived flight profile. 6 PAC-3 MSE interceptors launch in 4 seconds. They are small missiles, 18 inches in diameter, 290 kilograms, boosted to Mach 5 in the initial phase by a solid fuel rocket before transitioning to hit-to-kill terminal guidance. At Mach 5, closing with a Mach 5 target in an endo-atmospheric engagement, the time from launch to intercept is measured in seconds. 11 seconds for the first pair, 13 seconds for the second, 14 seconds for the third. First pair, intercept at 18 kilometers altitude, 31 kilometers northeast of the base. The KN-23 warhead section takes the first PAC-3 MSE directly in the seeker section, a kinetic hit that destroys the guidance system and causes the warhead to tumble. The tumbling warhead impacts a rice paddy 12 kilometers short of the base perimeter. No detonation. The structural integrity of the warhead casing was compromised by the intercept. The fusing mechanism was destroyed in the same hit that killed the guidance system. Second pair. Intercept at 15 kilometers altitude. Both interceptors hit. The KN-23 disintegrates in the air. Its fragments impact in the forest east of the base, scattered across a 3-kilometer debris field. No casualties. Third pair, 1 hit, 1 miss. The first PAC-3 MSE achieves direct impact at 12 kilometers altitude. The second PAC-3 MSE, a precautionary backup, passes through the expanding debris cloud of the destroyed missile and continues ballistic, falling harmlessly into a field 2 miles east of the base. 11:52 a.m. and 19 seconds. All 12 North Korean KN-23 ballistic missiles destroyed or neutralized. 0 reached the base perimeter. 0 reached populated areas. 0 casualties, American, Japanese, or civilian. At Misawa Air Base, the watch officer looks at his display, reviews the engagement summary transmitted from the C2 BMC network, and picks up his radio. All stations, base defense. All 12 tracks neutralized. No impact within the defense area. Initiate battle damage assessment and maintain readiness posture. Request strike authorization for Response Package Juliet. Response Package Juliet had been built over 3 years by Pacific Air Force's targeting teams, STRATCOM planners, and intelligence analysts from DIA, NSA, and NGA. It was a strike package designed for one contingency and one contingency only: a North Korean ballistic missile attack on American forces or Allied territory in Japan. It was specific. It was preloaded. It had been reviewed and updated quarterly as North Korea's capabilities evolved. The National Command Authority had pre-delegated strike authority in the event of an attack on U.S. bases in Japan to the commander, U.S. Forces Korea, who had been in the command bunker since the launch warning arrived. At 11:53 a.m., the authorization is received. Execute Response Package Juliet. All assets. The two F-35As on the Misawa flight line had been at cockpit alert. Pilots strapped in, engines on internal power, since the launch warning was received 6 minutes earlier. Both aircraft are now airborne before 11:54 a.m. Afterburners lit, climbing northeast before pivoting west toward the Korean Peninsula. Each aircraft carries 4 GBU-31 JDAM, 2,000-pound bombs in the internal weapons bays, and 2 AIM-120D AMR AAM air-to-air missiles. Their target packages are already loaded in the mission computer. They know where they're going. They know what they will find there. Kadena Air Base on Okinawa launches 8 F-15EX Strike Eagles simultaneously. Each carries AGM-158BJ ASSM-ER standoff missiles with a range of 550 miles, meaning the F-15EXS never entered North Korean airspace. They fire from international airspace over the Sea of Japan, and the missiles navigate autonomously to their aim points at low altitude, terrain following, radar cross-section of 0.01 square meters, invisible to every North Korean air defense radar currently operational. From Andersen Air Force Base on Guam, 2 B-1B Lancer bombers that had been on ground alert since the intelligence warning 3 days earlier are now airborne. Each B-1B carries 24 JASSM-ER missiles in its internal bays, 48 cruise missiles between the two aircraft, targeted at the North Korean ballistic missile infrastructure that launched this morning's attack. The B-1Bs fly north at Mach 1.2, making for their release point in international airspace 500 miles south of the Korean Peninsula. The first Tomahawk salvo launches at 11:55 a.m. The USS John Finn, whose VLS cells carry Tomahawk Block 5 missiles alongside the SM-3s, opens 12 cells and fires in a 17-second ripple. USS Curtis Wilbur fires 10 Tomahawks 18 seconds later. 22 Tomahawks, terrain following across the Sea of Japan at 550 knots, each one programmed to a specific aim point at one of 3 target complexes. Target Complex Alpha, the KN-23 launch sites at Sukchon, the 3 firing batteries that executed this morning's attack. The launch vehicles themselves are likely already reloading or relocating. North Korean doctrine mandates immediate movement after firing. But the support infrastructure cannot move. The battalion command post, a hardened structure 300 meters from the launch area, identified in satellite imagery from 48 hours ago. The fuel and oxidizer storage facility, a complex of above-ground and partially buried tanks that had been imaged in various states of fill over 18 months of continuous surveillance. The communications relay van, a wheeled vehicle that had been parked at the same position for 63 consecutive days, long enough to be surveyed, targeted, and loaded into a Tomahawk mission file. 8 Tomahawks, 8 aim points. The command post takes a Block 5 penetrating warhead. The fuel tanks take dual-mode warheads with incendiary fill. The relay van takes a direct attack warhead timed to arrive 6 seconds before the communications van's occupants could have processed the incoming missile warning from their own radar network. Target complex. Bravo, the KN-23 depot and maintenance facility at Pyeongchang. 14 additional KN-23 rounds in covered storage shelters, confirmed in satellite imagery 72 hours earlier. 6 Tomahawks. The storage building takes a penetrating warhead. The maintenance facility takes 2 Tomahawks in sequence, the second arriving 4 seconds after the first. The vehicle park and the electrical substation take 1 warhead each. Target complex. Charlie. The Strategic Rocket Forces headquarters at Hochang. 2-meter reinforced concrete walls, satellite communications array. 8 Tomahawks. The satellite array dies first, cutting external communications before the command staff can transmit a single order. The remaining 7 warheads walk across the building footprint in a timed pattern. By 11:58 a.m., JASSM-ER missiles from Kadena are crossing the North Korean coastline at 50 meters altitude. Terrain following through coastal mountain valleys at radar cross-section of 0.01 square meters. North Korean P-18 radar operators see ghosts, partial returns that lose track before a firing solution can be built. The missiles reach 3 additional KN-23TEL vehicles at a dispersal site 20 kilometers from Sukchon, plus 2 support vehicles and an active mobile radar unit. 32 JASSM-ERs. Every aim point serviced. The B-1Bs reach their release point at 12:11 p.m. and fire their JASSM-ER payloads at the Sohae Satellite Launching Station, North Korea's primary ballistic missile test and development facility, and the node through which an external intelligence sharing arrangement had been feeding precision targeting data on Misawa's radar emissions. NSA had been reading that traffic for 9 months. 48 JASSM-ERs on 16 aim points. The launch towers fall. The assembly building collapses. The fuel production complex burns for 6 hours. The 2 F-35As from Misawa arrive over the Sukchon area at 12:09 p.m. and complete the strike on remaining mobile launchers, using EO/IR targeting pods to find heat signatures from recently fired rocket motors. 2 TEL vehicles identified under forest cover, engines still warm. Both destroyed with GBU-31 bombs. By 12:19 p.m., 32 minutes after the first KN-23 left its launcher, the counterstrike is complete. Battle damage assessment, compiled by Pacific Air Force's intelligence at 2 p.m. from satellite imagery, signals intelligence, and aircraft post-strike reports, is comprehensive. KN-23 launch site infrastructure at Sukchon, command post destroyed, fuel and oxidizer storage destroyed with confirmed secondary detonations, communications relay vehicle destroyed. Pyeongchang, KN-23 storage depot, main storage building destroyed. Estimated 14 additional KN-23 rounds destroyed in storage. Assessed total loss of inventory at this facility. Maintenance facility destroyed. Strategic Rocket Forces headquarters at Hochang destroyed. Communications capability eliminated. 3 additional KN-23TEL vehicles destroyed at dispersal site. 2 support vehicles and 1 mobile radar destroyed. Sohae Satellite Launching Station, launch towers destroyed. Missile assembly building destroyed. Fuel production complex destroyed and burning. Underground command facility assessed as severely damaged with possible partial collapse. Total KN-23TEL vehicles destroyed or damaged, assessed at 11 of an estimated 14 in the operational area. Strategic Rocket Forces command and control capability severely degraded. Intelligence sharing node linking North Korea to external data sources destroyed. Estimated North Korean military personnel killed in action, 80 to 130. Estimated KN-23 inventory destroyed or damaged, 25 to 30 rounds, representing 40 to 50% of assessed operational inventory. American casualties, 0. Japanese civilian casualties, 0. Base damage at Misawa, none. At 12:25 p.m., the watch officer at Misawa Base Defense Operations Center completes his initial after-action report and transmits it to Pacific Air Forces. He notes the engagement timeline: 12 inbound ballistic missiles. Total intercept time from first SM-3 launch to final PAC-3 impact, 4 minutes and 7 seconds. 0 leakers. 0 impact within the defense area. He reviews the numbers once more, then sets the report aside and begins the pre-flight check sequence for the next alert aircraft. The work continues. The watch continues. The base continues to function exactly as it was designed to function, not as a target, but as a fortress, a professional, defended, lethal fortress that absorbs attacks and returns fire with a speed and precision that the attacker has no framework to anticipate. Kim Jong-un had believed that 12 KN-23s were enough to overwhelm the American layered defense at Misawa. He had been briefed that the depressed trajectory defeated the SM-3. He had been told that the terminal maneuver defeated the PAC-3. He had been told a great many things about the vulnerability of American bases in Japan, and he had believed them because the men who told him these things needed him to believe them. None of it was accurate. Not the trajectory analysis. Not the intercept probability assessments. Not the assumptions about American readiness. And certainly not the assumption that a ballistic missile attack on Misawa would go unanswered. The answer came in 32 minutes. The answer came in Tomahawk missiles and JASSM-ERs and 2 F-35As hunting warm engines in a North Korean forest. The answer came in 11 destroyed transporter erector launchers and a burn-in satellite station in a command facility buried under its own reinforced concrete. In the Combat Direction Center of the USS John Finn, the watch team is reloading the VLS cells from the ammunition ship positioned 23 miles to the east. The process takes 4 hours. By the time it is complete, the John Finn will be ready to execute the same engagement again. Same timeline. Same result. The Sea of Japan is open. Misawa Air Base is operational. The F-35As are back on the flight line, being rearmed for the next sortie. Attack the United States military. And the answer always comes. The layered defense does not fail. The missiles do not reach their targets. And 30 minutes later, the assets that launched those missiles are scattered across the landscape in burning pieces. That is not a deterrent posture. That is not a warning. That is the mathematical certainty of what happens when precision meets aggression. Every time.